Okay, so a quick tip before I'm gonna start the review. Get comfortable, because this video will take quite a while. There is a lot to talk about, and I just want to give you the best possible coverage of all the Mate 10s. Today this would be the Huawei Mate 10 Pro, in a few days the Huawei Mate 10 Lite, and then a few days after that, the actual, in my opinion, highlight, the Huawei Mate 10, which I just got today, but just from a hardware standpoint, I can already tell you so much. If you want a proper 16:9 phablet successor to the Mate 9, this is the phone of this year that you are waiting for. But I would say, let's get into the Mate 10 Pro. Here you can see, just real quick, the Mate 10 Lite, and here the Mate 10, the regular version. So as you can see, just quick, and I will make a comparison between these two. As you can see, it is shorter, the Mate 10, but therefore wider. But consider this is 16:9, and if you take a look at those bezels, this is so compact, it feels amazing, and it's actually hard to put into words how amazing this feels. You really need to hold it in your hands. But this doesn't say anything about that Pro feeling, because this feels almost as good. It feels a little bit different in the hand, but I have to say, just in terms of build quality, absolutely top notch. There is no wiggling of the buttons. They have an amazing feedback. They click very nice. They're positioned very well. So just in terms of build quality and design, there is pretty much no one else that can keep up on that level compared to Huawei, because also the back, it's glass, but it doesn't really feel super, or a little bit, but that's due to the Gorilla Glass, I guess. But it actually is quite grippy, which I did not expect, especially though the sides. The sides are super grippy, and this actually allows the phone to be handled in one hand, even though it's a 5 or 6 inch display, but of course 2x1, yeah, you won't reach all the way to the top, but you can reach almost to the sides, and I would still say this is to be considered the 5.5 inches, as in terms of an in-hand feel of the width and so on, but this is so great. I just can't really express it well enough of how great it feels, because it feels super sturdy in the hand, super premium, has a great weight distribution. Yes, since it is a little bit taller, I still kinda am cautious when I type so it won't flip over, but other than that, we have the fingerprint reader, and Huawei is pretty much here the king of the top. And I would say just maybe a Huawei P10 or an Honor 8 or an Honor 9 are faster, because maybe it's just my imagination, because those had it on the front, so it's hard to completely compare it. But as you can see, screen is on, pop. It's pretty much instantly. Of course, we have the two cams. They do stick out a little bit, which is a little bit weird, because it will give the phone a little bit of a wobble, which it still will get anyways, because there is a little bit of a curve, mostly towards the sides, and then we have also a little bit of a curve, a minimal one. The flat front is nice to see, but it also has a smooth transition towards the sides, and this gives it an overall very comfortable feel in hand. Other than that, we have the IR blaster, the microphone. We have the SD card and SIM card tray. No, actually we don't have, because it's just SIM. No SD card tray in this version, as also no headphone jack. And why this is a Pro device, I don't really get, because the normal Mate 10 has that, the Pro has not. So what makes it more Pro with less features? I am not right 100% sure. We have the speaker here that works as a dual speaker with the earpiece, then USB Type-C, microphone. We have a notification LED, a multicolored one. We don't have capacitive buttons also, because we have on-screen buttons. Those are of course replaceable. As we can see, nice small bezels, and all around I can't really say anything else. I've pretty much said it already. Excellent design, or at least build quality and great design. Let's get to the next thing. And before you say maybe I'm using a theme, no, what I'm using actually is the following. Since this is an OLED display, we have to get into one thing. As you can see, dark and interface colors. So we have out of the box a dark mode, a black mode, which is nice to see, because this won't maybe help you to save a lot of battery life, but still. This is a 2160, if I'm not wrong, by 1080 display, so 2x1, but it's full HD plus. As you can see here, you could lower the resolution. I definitely would not, same as smart resolution, because I would not go any lower than 1080p already. We have a color mode this time, which is actually the first time I've seen on Huawei devices. Before we had, of course, like we do have now, a white balance control, but not that. As you can see here, it definitely brightens up the colors. On the OLED display, you definitely want that, so I'm happy with that. White point is good. There is a little bit of a shift here, but nothing we should really be concerned about, because as you can see here, I have not noticed in the week that I've used it any issues, but the quality of the display is great, I would say, but I won't give it a grade because, as said, I need a quality display these days for a grade. So very good. In terms of qualities, maybe yes, because maximum brightness was actually a little bit hard to measure, and I will get into that in just a few seconds because I measured 660 lux, but the issue is the following. If I go into apps, as you can see here, the display actually dims and now brightens up, and it's hard to see that on screen. And it doesn't actually always happen, which is the weirdest thing here, because usually what happened on Huawei device, whenever you went into, for example, Google Docs or maybe Chrome browser or any browser, the screen dimmed. Now it sometimes does it and sometimes does not do it. I'm not quite sure because I'm not using auto mode or anything. This is a fixed brightness, but it wasn't fixed. Sometimes it's super bright and sometimes it isn't. So that's just something to keep in mind. I personally was very annoyed by it because if it darkens, the colors just seem dull in the overall screen, because as you can see now it's very bright, and I actually did set the display not to be too bright because it's not a consistent brightness. For everyone who uses auto mode for brightness, it will be no issue, but for someone like me who always uses a fixed brightness level, this is actually super annoying. And I'm not quite sure why Huawei still does this. Some phones have it, some phones don't, because the Huawei Mate 10 Lite, for example, doesn't have it. The normal one has and the Pro has. So what's up with that? I don't know. But let's get into the speaker. So we have a dual speaker arrangement, so more like bass and mids from here and the highs from here. But I would still recommend you to kind of cup it so it will reflect, because this improves the sound even more so, which still though is very good because it's very nice and loud and very high quality. I'm super pleased with this. It's pretty much on par with the Mate 9. Didn't have a side-by-side comparison, but totally satisfied. Now, since we don't have a headphone jack, we need the adapter, but unfortunately I didn't get it shipped in my box. It's usually there, don't worry, but I can't really say anything about the headphone jack quality. What I can tell from the past experience that I had from Huawei devices, it will be okay, but just about that. Now let's get into the performance, and I know I will get a lot of flack for that because we have 6 gigs of RAM and all this, and that is fine. But the issue for me is that the software, same as on the Huawei Mate 9 already last year, seems not quite finished, because there are still some actual quite obvious amounts of lags. As you can see here, if it's super smooth due to the AMOLED or OLED display, everything is nice, you can browse just great. And all the apps, as you can see here, launch quite moderate fast, not crazy fast, but definitely on a flagship level. So I have no complaints here, but especially the many instances where we just still see some minor lag. It's nothing really that changes the experience a whole lot. Definitely not. But what it does is, it's obvious. It is noticeable. And it's not 100% on a flagship level just yet. I'm pretty sure in maybe a month or two, because that was the same on the Huawei Mate 9. The first time I wasn't fully impressed, and the second time, like 3 months later, when all the updates went in with everything being optimized, I had a killer experience, and then it was one of the best phones. And as you can see, multitasking, of course, is great. Double tap is here. So I'm fully pleased, but not quite on the very highest flagship level. There are phones like the HSU 11, Sony Mi 6, and some other ones that are just this little bit more consistent without the little bit amount of lag. This, I'm pretty sure will get ironed out, but I can't say yet. Same also goes for gaming. A few slowdowns, same as on the Huawei Mate 9, but yeah, no need to get further into that. It did not really get hot or anything like that. So the next thing is actually efficiency, because like I said, it doesn't really get so hot in games, because the SoC is actually way more efficient than I would have expected. Unfortunately, I can't tell you the charge time because I totally forgot it and just remembered before I started a review. I'm expecting it to be at maybe 1.5 hours. I will leave that down in the description once I have it, but for now it's not here. What I have though is 8% for off YouTube, which is way above the average. And then, and this is kind of the most impressive part, about 9 to 10 hours. Of course, with the adaptive brightness, which is a little bit harder to judge because whatever you use, it could be a little bit different, but that's why I leave it a room for 9 to 10 hours on Wi-Fi and about 7 hours of mobile data use. That is great plus, that is impressive, definitely. I'm fully pleased because I did not actually expect this. Okay, Full HD display definitely helps and so on, but yeah, absolutely. Now, software-wise. Yeah, okay, here's the thing. We have, no, not this, about the phone. We are running 8.0 on the build number, but also on the MIUI number. But to be honest, it feels more like MIUI 5.2 because they jumped from 5.1 to 8 to make it parallel with the Android version, which is fine, absolutely no problem, but don't expect too much of a change because of course we have the app drawer, and as you can see, this was actually a little bit of a lag, but nothing big. But we have that. We have the quick settings, we have the dark mode, as I said, but this only has the OLED version because the Huawei Mate 10, because of the LCD display, for some reason doesn't have the dark mode. I would prefer it still, even though it maybe doesn't save battery. It would have been nice. But as you can see here, all the settings are pretty much exactly the same as on the previous versions of EMUI, because as you can see here, ringtones, some sounds features. We of course still have smart assistants with the system animation navigation bar. You can change it or use the navigation dock, which is a little bit of a pointer where you can press it and so on, but it's nothing I think anyone would actually use. Of course, we have still one-handed UI, we have motion control, we have knuckle controls, which is actually quite nice. What I've also noticed though in terms of software, maybe optimization, is that when I once used the dual window mode in YouTube and used another app, the performance was very laggy, and this is actually one of my gripes here about the software, because just in terms of features, just in terms of the overall experience, it is totally fine, but there are a few things that I'm just not that happy with. That is, for example, the content adaptiveness of brightness, or whatever the adaptive brightness does. Then there are things like some apps sometimes 3/4 of the display are white and you scroll just in the full part, so you have to kill the app, and sometimes it's a little bit janky, sometimes it doesn't react quite so well. So there are quite a lot of minor bugs they still have to iron out, because after all, this device isn't officially out yet, and like I said, this is a device that you should not expect to run 100% at start, because the Huawei Mate 9 didn't. It's definitely not something we want to have. We want out of the box have a great experience. These days, because everyone rushes their releases and so on, we don't get that so many times, but it is what it is. Now, let's get into the cam. Maybe kind of the highlight for this phone, but okay, here are a few pictures that I did actually with 140 kilometers out of my car. And as you can see, not actually that bad, I have to say. And here I was on the CanJam 2017. Selfie cam does a good picture. I think though still it does overexpose generally a little bit too much. Everything seems a little bit too pale. Here, for example, as well, here in complete darkness, actually not that bad. This is just with the screen lighting up white for taking the picture, which is fine. But here you can see, I think what the camera does in general, both though, front and back, is over sharpen and overexpose. As you can see here, the bokeh mode works actually quite nice. As you can see, they really do have nailed that by now. As you can see here once again, it is a nice feature for everyone who wants this bokeh mode. Also, well, working very fine, yes. And I also have to say, since it's the winter, maybe the lighting conditions were bad, because the whole week that I've used this phone, it was always rainy. I never had sun, so I couldn't really take any pictures with the best possible experience. But selfies look nice, especially the portrait mode looks good. But I would prefer a little bit more details in the selfies, and especially just some more contrast, because everything feels a little bit overexposed. But at least the selfie or the bokeh mode works great. As you can see here, top. Video, as well as you can see here, works good. It's fine. But what it does, that was actually a little bit annoying. There is quite a lot of crop going on, because my arm is almost completely stretched and I just have my head up. Because the quality itself is actually really good without a doubt, but the crop was a little bit annoying. Sound quality of the microphone, I have to say though, was quite muffled. Maybe I blocked it due to how I used it, but that's the way I hold phones usually. And as you can see, video quality is actually quite nicely stabilized, but that's due to the crop. There must be some stabilization also in terms of software going on. Then this is a picture in almost complete darkness without the flash, and here with the flash. So it definitely helps a lot. Here once again without the flash though, and here with the flash, and it definitely improves it. Even though I have to say actually the low light qualities are good. This is fine for indoors with not optimal lighting. I will give this a really good, absolutely top, yes. Here once again the bokeh mode works nice. And outside, yeah, don't expect the pictures to be amazing since it's not the best weather, but I have to say I was actually impressed by how good, and here once again with the bokeh mode, of how good the pictures are for the actually really bad lighting conditions. As you can see, bokeh mode works nice. Yeah, there is some over sharpening. I guess that's something that I personally like a lot, and that's why I was maybe impressed. But I definitely see it. Then, for example, without HDR and HDR, it definitely adds some more contrast, but also a little bit some double contrast. Here once again. So I would definitely give it a potentially great, because I can't fully judge it with the weather conditions, because it almost seems too good for the weather. So maybe the trickery is there, but as you can see here, this didn't work out at all. But with HDR, it fixed it. But I have to say the access to HDR is very clumsy, because you have to swipe, then enable HDR mode, and then you can use it. And if you want to turn it off, you can turn it off again. But there is no auto HDR mode or something like that, which is a bummer. Now, video here once again. This was out of the car. And yes, I definitely shouldn't have recorded a video, but it was quite, yeah, not much going on the street. But as you can see, it looks good, considering of the movement. But the usual video, as you can see here, of course, like I said, the weather is bad. 4K still doesn't look quite as good as 4K, just in terms of sharpness and details compared to some other phones. But at least there is no artifacting going on. It feels quite smooth. Autofocus works spot on. Absolutely top. Some nice, actual, quite enough subtle transitions in terms of lighting. It is kind of stabilized, but what I've noticed is, due to movement, you notice it kind of seems to try to stabilize it, and then you have quite a lot of some minor motion blur, which is not perfect. And once again, the overexposure. That could be due to the weird lighting, due to the bad weather, but still. Then though, if we go into 1080p, I have to say I would not really use that. Stick with 4K, because 1080p looks like 720 at best. This is 1080p 60, but it doesn't help. So 4K actually is almost 4K for others, but 1080p not at all, not in my opinion. And that's why I would say we should already get not to make this video any longer than it has to be, even though it's actually not that long yet. Let's get to the pros and cons if I hit the right button. And yes, okay, build, top notch. This is pretty much just as good as it gets. Design is great, it feels top in hand and everything else. Fingerprint reader is excellent. Pretty much the best with maybe the P10 and so on. Display, very good. Like I said, due to being just 1080p plus, I said myself I can't give it more than that, but that's a general rating of mine. Speaker, then also very good, because loud and good quality. Headphone jack, like I said, I can't judge, but I don't expect it to be more than okay. Performance, not quite great yet. Emphasis on yet. I'm pretty sure in 1 month or 2 it will be there. Then battery life, great plus. Software, really good, but not flawless and not free of annoyances. I've talked about that. Front-facing cam, potentially great, especially due to the bokeh mode. They need a little bit more optimization, or if you want to use manual mode, of course, which is quite easy to access, you definitely can get even way better results, because then you can kind of fix the overexposure and so on. Front-facing video cam is very good though. Low light cam also actually better than expected, really good. Main cam, potentially great. Tends to overexpose and oversharp. Like I said, you can easily take it as a great if you use it maybe in manual mode, or if they maybe improve a few things in next updates. Video cam, very good, but visible blur during movement. Value, I don't know. I will get to it a little bit later, but let's get into a few extra notes. Adaptive brightness control. I can't stand this feature. If you use auto mode, though, I have to say you most probably won't even notice. I use fixed brightness, and for me it's annoying the hell out of me. Oreo annoyances, like for example the notifications for drain, but that's an absolute normal thing. I didn't really even show that, because you get a permanent notification that apps are draining, but that's an Oreo thing. Nothing I can really blame the phone for, but I still wanted to mention it. And you can actually get rid of that by now with an extra app, or in 8.1 it will be actually fixed. Just so we have covered that. Then performance still needs a little bit of work, like the 9 did. On the 9, a few software and app glitches, and no headphone jack or SD card slot, which is the thing. I actually wanted to start with the sentence of, how can this be the Pro with less features than the regular one? Now, if you want to call it the Pro or not, it doesn't matter. It is officially the Pro. It is officially the phone, the Mate 10, that will get, I guess, sold in most areas, which is actually unfortunate, because from what I see, just from having this like 1 or 2 hours, this, I think, the Mate 10, the regular one, is what most Mate 9 users wanted, what most phablet users would like to, because this is a proper 5.9-inch display. But in the comparison, I would say this, it feels actually so compact and so manageable that I don't get why this one got the preference. Maybe due to the 2x1 display, because if we just take a quick look, and everyone says you have to have, or it looks to me like always people say if you have a 2x1 display, it's all screen. But as you can see here, bezels and a little bit on top and bottom. But as you can see here, even less bezels on the side, but not really much more, as you can see on the top and bottom. So I don't really know. Let's try to summarize of what I think of the phone. I think for the price of around 800 euros, of course, this might change, and I think actually quite soon it will drop to like 700. That's just what Huawei usually does, at least here in Europe. I have to say the build quality is absolutely top. The quality is overall. The display, even though it's not a maybe proper flagship display due to the resolution, it is a nice display, but the brightness control was annoying me. The sound is amongst the best, and there will be like maybe 2 or 3 other ones that will be just on par with that. Performance, like I said, a little bit fixes needed, but all the rest, this whole combo is a top phone. But we have a lot of top phones these days. The V30 will be a hard contender for many people, the Note 8 or the S8 Plus, the Mate 10 of course as well, and so much more. And I have to say, I would like to like it even more so than I already do, because it feels great and it does most of the things, but the few minor things that are important for me, like the performance, which isn't there where it should be at, and the display control, which are of course subjective gripes of mine, are what kind of diminishes my experience. If I see it objectively, it is a super nice phone, one that I will, I guess, recommend quite a lot. But everyone, and I've got this already from the comments, is interested in this one. And I can already pretty much tell you just from the experience of the Mate 10 Pro that I will like the Mate 10 even more so. I really did not use it yet, but just from an in-field display, even better resolution and so on, might be the one you should maybe look out for. The good thing though is this costs $800. Yes, but this, if you get it with 64 gigs and 4 gigabytes instead of 6 gigabytes, you can already get from import shops for about 500 euros. So you pay, or you save $300 and euros, and in my opinion, you actually get the potentially, I can't say yet, better phone. Of course, you have to import that. From a software standpoint, it seems to be working fine because I got it out of the box. It has all language support, it has the same bands and so on, because in many regions this will be sold, and some say that maybe in Germany it will be even available once it gets more popular. But I think if you like the original Mate 9, if you like phablets with 16:9 where you don't have any problems with 2x1, with pillar bars and so on, you should maybe wait for that and save some money. So personally, that's the main reason why I'm not quite blown away at, just because I like this, I think, a lot more. But on the other hand, it doesn't change the fact that anyone who wants this new design with 2x1, who wants great qualities, who wants a great camera, even though it's actually not that mind-blowing as I expected it to be, I still would personally prefer like something like a Pixel cam or maybe a Samsung cam. But yeah, I don't really know what else to say, so I will just quit it. And you can let me know what you think in the comments down there below. That would have been it.